Everyone for joining us today. We're super excited to walk through the September 2025 ACC releases. So with that, let's get started. Do a quick intro of myself and my buddy Alan on the call with us today. So if you've not met me before, my name's Lisa Stine. I'm a construction engagement engineer over here at IMAGINiT. I've been here about 6 months now, coming here from about 7 years at Autodesk, and then previous to that, about 8 years as a licensed professional structural engineer working specifically in electric utilities, but doing a lot of construction, located in northern Colorado, and super excited to be here. And Alan, would love for you to do a quick intro too.
Thanks, Lisa. My name is Alan Deluce, and I've been here with the company for 3.5+ years, but been in the industry for 20, doing all kinds of sides of this industry, the design, consulting, and then in the construction side, doing BIM and VDC management. And I'm in Indianapolis, not as awesome as northern Colorado, but and I'm still older than Lisa.
Yes, hopefully that never changes. All right, so a quick agenda, a quick overview of what you guys can expect on our call today. I'm going to just give a little bit of an introduction around what the Autodesk Construction Cloud release cadence looks like. Then we'll hop into the September 2025 releases. So yes, it's October. These releases come out about mid-September. They happen every 2 months. I'll talk a little bit about that in the cadence slide, but we're going to go through different sections of those releases. So I'm going to cover kind of platform-wide releases, and then Alan will dig into Autodesk BIM Collaborate and BIM Collaborate Pro specific releases, as well as Autodesk Build releases. And then if you were lucky enough to be at Autodesk University or were able to attend online and maybe watch some of the classes or keynotes, you are aware that Autodesk Estimate is coming out soon. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek around some features and functionalities of that new solution, and then we'll hop into some Q&A. So again, just a quick kind of overview so you guys can understand what the Autodesk Construction Cloud product release cadence looks like. They roll out new releases every 2 months. So we had a release in September. There will be another release in November, January. You can kind of follow along with that. Alan and I do these webinars every 2 months. We're typically a couple of weeks after the release has actually been released from Autodesk Construction Cloud, and that is just to make sure that there's not been any changes to those releases or any of the messaging hasn't changed. So we kind of let that information sit for a couple of weeks before we meet with you guys. It's also really important that we've had time to understand what those new releases are too, so that we can communicate them in an effective way to you guys. So those releases happen every 2 months. You can join our webinars every 2 months. We would love to see you guys on here. And this is just a really great way for you guys to stay in the loop with what's new to Autodesk Construction Cloud. It's a massive environment and there's just a lot of moving parts. And so this just gives you a bird's eye or a clear insight into what's going on inside the environment. So with that, we'll hop into the actual releases, and we're going to start with our platform-wide releases. Now, each of these different sections, so I mentioned I'm going to go through platform-wide. Alan's going to do Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro and Build. They all have different sections inside of kind of those overall sections. So we're trying to get really specific on what features and functionalities we're focusing on and what workflows they really pertain to. So the first for platform-wide, and when I say platform-wide, that means all of the Autodesk Construction Cloud, is going to be document management. So we can hop into our first release here, and our first release here, or two first releases have to do with the desktop connector. So the data panel, for anyone who's going to spend their day bouncing between your Windows File Explorer and Autodesk Docs, this new release is going to make your workflow feel much more connected. So the new data panel brings cloud-based context directly into your desktop environment. What that means is when you select a file in Windows Explorer, you can now see all of its ACC properties. So things like version, status, the date that it was last modified, any other key metadata. And you're going to be able to see all of that directly from your desktop. That means that you don't have to now go back into Autodesk Docs just to verify what's current, or whether you're looking at the approved version of a drawing, you can check that instantly without leaving your Windows File Explorer. And that's going to make reviewing and managing your files just a lot faster and much more reliable. So for teams that operate in more of a hybrid environment where you have some of your files stored locally and others are in the cloud, this is a super big win just for collaboration and efficiency. The data panel also supports a more transparent review process. And with that, admins and coordinators can see project level context from anywhere that they're working, and that's going to help avoid version conflicts and duplicate uploads. So this is just really Autodesk kind of working to continue to build towards that seamless cloud desktop experience. The other release that we have that pertains to Desktop Connector is for on-demand file processing. So alongside the data panel comes another really subtle and smart enhancement. So previously, every file that was uploaded through the Desktop Connector was automatically processed for viewing in Docs. And that worked really well for projects that were on the smaller side. But as you guys, as our clients' data sets got larger, that auto processing step could really start to slow things down, especially if we consider hundreds of files being uploaded at one time. So this release changes that dynamic entirely. Now, files uploaded via the Desktop Connector are not going to automatically be processed for viewing. Instead, what you can do is trigger the processing manually. So you can either do that from the Desktop Connector itself or directly within Autodesk Docs. So the benefit here is really around control and performance, because now your teams can decide exactly when the processing is going to happen. So an example of that might be, after we have a coordinated batch upload or maybe before a major design review, and that's going to keep our bandwidth usage and our server load more optimized. Okay, so those are our Desktop Connector releases. The next space we're going to hop into is packages. Again, this pertains obviously to document management. So now we're talking about adding references from a package. So if you've ever managed coordination across different, design or review packages, you know how challenging it can be to keep context connected. So a package might have, critical design files or might have updated model sets, but the relevant issues, RFIs, or forms that explain exactly why something has changed, that information typically lives somewhere else. And so that disconnect leads to rework, missed updates, endless backtracking, things that you guys are very, very familiar with. So now project teams can link packages directly to key project items by just using the reference picker, the picker that you guys are familiar with a lot of other different workflows inside of Autodesk Construction Cloud. So now we can connect packages to issues, RFIs, forms, assets, really everything that you can see on the screen right there. And the result of this is going to be a much more integrated and traceable workflow. So now when someone opens a package, they don't just see the deliverables, they also can see the entire context that surrounds that package. So what is being tracked, what's being approved, and what's still pending. And that context is going to transform packages from being more static file drops into what I would consider more dynamic connected information hubs. So as you can probably guess, right, this is going to be a really large win for visibility and accountability. So by giving package managers and admins the ability to establish direct references, we're going to help you to reduce communication gaps and bring more transparency into your overall review process. So really, in short, not really short, I've been talking for a while, but in short, adding references from a package is going to help to strengthen the connective tissue kind of around the Autodesk Construction Cloud. By creating a single source of truth for packages, we're going to improve that traceability and make your project data work a lot harder for you. All right, moving on into files. So we've got 3 different releases here for our files. The first change, and honestly, I think one that most of our project admins will love the most, is the ability to mark specific file attributes as required. So this might sound like a small thing, but it's actually really huge for data integrity. So before, project teams could upload anything. They could attach models, PDFs, photos, any kind of assets like that without consistent metadata. But now you can define which attributes have to be filled out before a file can even be uploaded. So what that means is no more mystery drawings without, attached disciplines. We don't know if they're civil or MEP. No more specs, missing trade associations. No more endless cleanup work later for you guys that are working kind of in the admin space. The result for you is going to be stronger document control, more consistent metadata across your entire project, and then cleaner downstream integrations into tools like cost management or asset tracking. or when you look at your analytics dashboards. We're also lucky to have the new release that is around usability, and that is the file settings layout restructure. So Autodesk has reorganized the settings tabs to make it a lot easier for you to navigate and configure project and template settings. So if you've ever kind of gone on a little hunt, for that one setting that's buried maybe 3 menus deep, this update is going to save you a lot of time. It's part of a broader effort that we're seeing from Autodesk. So they're looking for reducing clicks, improving clarity, helping admins manage larger projects without feeling lost in the interface. And then the last release pertaining to files is the holding area setting. That's being relocated from the naming standards page into its own dedicated tab space. So that separation might sound maybe a little bit aesthetic or cosmetic, but it's really about clarity and accessibility. So that's going to keep your file holding workflows front and center, making it a lot easier for review stages or any QA/QC gates without interrupting naming conventions. All right, so that's it for document management. Now we're going to hop into project standardization releases. The first is around Bridge. This is, I think people kind of would see it as it's pretty deceptively simple, but I think that it's a release that's going to really help every day. Now you get an email the moment that a Bridge invitation is accepted and the Bridge project is created. So this matters because when we have cross-organization collaboration, that tends to fail at handoff points, right? We typically see that we take a couple of steps back when we kind of move on to the next point. So someone sends an invite and then it's kind of silence. We don't know if they've accepted. We don't know if IT blocked it. We don't know if they created the project on their side. And then meanwhile, your team is waiting to push files, sync issues, share packages. So this new automatic email alert is going to close that gap. What that means is as soon as the receiving organization accepts, you are going to be notified and you can move immediately into project setup. So there's no manual checking that you need to do, no chasing statuses and emails or messages to people. So I think that this is a really big one. All right, next we're going to move into templates. All right, so sample templates are now visible directly in the project template list page. In previous releases, those out-of-the-box Autodesk templates that you guys had access to, they existed, but they were kind of tucked away. And by that, I mean that a lot of teams didn't even know that they were available. So with this update, they're front and center, right where you can create or clone your new projects. So what that means is the moment that you click to create a new project in ACC, you can now browse and select from a curated library of sample templates. Those are pre-configured for different roles, different industries, different types of projects. There's templates geared towards GCs, owners, design firms, infrastructure teams, public sector, tons of different stuff in there, and all of them come with relevant permissions, folder structures, module configurations that are already kind of baked into that template. This update, I think, is going to help to eliminate one of the biggest early stage bottlenecks, which is kind of the quote unquote blank page problem, right? How do we start a project all the way from scratch? So instead of spending hours building your first project set up from scratch, deciding what modules to turn on, what naming conventions need to look like, or how to structure folders, and they say all this if you're not utilizing IMAGINiT to help with your implementation, you can now start from a ready-made framework built on Autodesk best practices or really what they've seen throughout the industry. Okay. So I think it's kind of the perfect blend of, guidance and flexibility. And Alan is done with me talking about that. So we'll move on to quality and safety management. All right, just a couple of releases in this space before I hand it over to Alan. The first is going to be around issues. Now closed issues download and sync behavior. So from here on out, closed issues are not automatically going to download or sync onto your mobile devices. And this might sound, again, like a kind of a small thing, but if you've ever opened the issues tab in the field and had to scroll through hundreds of resolved items just to find, the couple of issues that really matter for today's work, then this release is for you. So by focusing only on active relevant issues, the mobile experience is going to become a lot cleaner and faster for you. Sync times are going to drop dramatically. Data usage is going to be lower. Storage on, on your mobile devices is going to be less because we're not, uploading archived or irrelevant information. But more importantly, this is going to keep your field folks focused on what is truly live, right? The issues that impact construction progress today. You'll still have access to everything that you need through the web. It's not being deleted just because it's a closed issue, but now the mobile app is going to prioritize what's truly relevant for that day's work. And Alan thought that this was going to be a boring slide, so he put a little sad clown on there. But I think this is a great issue, or a great release for us around issues. All right, next we're going to move into viewing, and the first topic we're going to talk about here is ACC viewpoints. So this update is really bridging the communication gap between model coordination, Autodesk Docs, and the ACC mobile app. So for the first time, our teams can see and select viewpoints created in the ACC web directly within the model viewer. And even better, Autodesk has unified this experience so you can now view both Navisworks created viewpoints and ACC created viewpoints in a single panel. So what this does is going to eliminate fragmentation when we're going through the coordination process. So if we kind of, an example of this I might give is a coordination lead, identifies a clash, and then they capture that viewpoint, right? They save that viewpoint, and then they're going to flag it for review. Before this release, that context often lived only in Navisworks or in a coordination space that didn't translate downstream. But now with this release, that same viewpoint can be seen by our project engineers, our PMs, our PEs, our BDC managers, even, supers, right? And we can do all of that in ACC. So we don't need to export anything. We don't need to take screenshots. We don't need to perhaps be confused about which model version is being referenced for this viewpoint. Everyone's going to be aligned, both in a visual capacity and a contextual capacity. So this is going to create what we call that single source of truth, right? That terminology that we love to use here within Autodesk and IMAGINiT. So it's not just data sharing, it's kind of shared understanding because there's context behind this information. And I think that that kind of alignment is what is going to build better trust between office and field teams and really help to accelerate decision making because everyone's seeing the same geometry, the same comment, and overall the same perspective. All right. And then my last slide for us here, again, something that Alan thought might not be that interesting to you guys, but I know will be. Let's highlight the new native mobile model viewer. So this really is a major leap forward for anyone that's working with large, complex 3D models and working in kind of an on-the-go capacity. Now, Alan and I work as technical consultants. We work with clients constantly, and I have heard a million complaints about how 3D models are taking forever to load. Your models are too large for this viewer. So this is a super exciting release here. This new viewer is going to use on-demand loading, which means that it's only going to process the visible portions of the model. And that optimization is going to make it possible to open massive federated models that would have crashed or lagged in the past right from your iPad or your phone. And that difference, I think you guys are going to experience as kind of a night and day difference. Navigation is going to feel a lot smoother. It's going to feel a lot more immediate. You can pan, you can orbit, you can zoom, all of that without any kind of lagging or texture dropouts. I think it's a level of performance that finally is going to let your field folks explore detailed models in real time without relying on static PDFs or partial exports. So imagine, if you're a super and you're walking around on the site. I mean, this is a role that I used to have, right? I would open a full coordination model and I'm kind of toggling the layers inside and I'm looking to compare actual installation against design intent on location. Or maybe, I'm an inspector and I'm verifying that our piping routing with live access to current and model data instead of outdated paper drawings, right? So this release is going to transform model viewing from a desktop only experience into that true field collaboration tool. But I am not a huge Ron Burgundy buff, so I will let Alan explain what this visual means and how it pertains to this release here.
Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing too crazy. It's pretty big. I think it's really important to, alongside the Navisworks viewpoints rather, and this. I think it's really valuable in working with clients who. We always have these projects that are growing in size and complexity, and having this ability to kind of do the occlusion context or concept is really powerful for our end users, and it is, I don't know how to put it, but it's a pretty big deal. Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate that. And, specifically you can, sizes of files being megabytes, being able to be viewed now. Again, it's grown to having much larger file sizes that are more easily navigable and viewable. All right, thank you, Lisa. I will take over and let's take a jump into Autodesk BIM Collaborate and Pro. So the releases this time focus mostly on the model coordination side. So let's take a look. All right, so with the coordination space configuration, we now have this opportunity to do file extension filtering. And in doing so, it allows us to do a couple different processes of filtering, both by the file type, and we can do it at a local file, or I should say a folder level. But we can also do this more quickly at a global level, so that if we want to filter to only show, say, RVTs and NFC or Navis files, and not have to include any of the other non-clash related, model-driven file types, we can do that. So you can do it again, either single folders or by a global filter. For those of us who have to spend time doing coordination, those of us who've done that in the past, it can be an incredibly tedious process. Whether we're in model coordination or in Navisworks, every single click matters. And anything we can do to streamline that process of filtering and kind of saving that and kind of, again, applying that globally, it's going to speed us up, reduce the amount of picks and clicks, and streamline and actually standardize what exactly we are clashing. So this expanded filter capability is really handy. Clash performance improvements. So as far as this goes, regarding clash detection, something that's incredibly important is the clash data and the information that is loaded into the model coordination module. This is now going to have noticeable improvement and difference in regard to these, again, kind of focusing back on that large model improvement, the large federated models. So when we create the coordination spaces, the detailed kind of the metadata aspect of all of these models, it used to be preloaded automatically. And that was fine for smaller projects, right? No big deal. However, when we're working on these more complex projects, you would have to, as we do in other platforms and things that are reasonable that we deal with in the past, you may have to actually step away, go grab coffee, come back, and it may be still loading. Well, now what is called a, they've pivoted to this, what is called, just-in-time loading. So now only the information that is applicable to this test that we're running is going to surface. So if we have two models, it will load everything. However, if we have multiple models that are needing to be loaded, those multiple models will only be loaded upon request. So we go in and select, hey, I need to see these additional models or this additional content. That is when that will load, and again, it won't bog us down. And some back-end information. There's been studies done on what files have been uploaded and how often are they viewed upon upload. That is what has driven some of these latest changes regarding the data, the desktop connector and what does load, and then here in model coordination and what does load, because our machines and our systems are being overburdened by unnecessary loading. So that's why they've optimized this and actually brought that down. So this is this next extended properties in public beta. So this is something I think we're going to find really valuable, where if anyone has ever used I find it kind of analogous to being able in the Assemble platform to be able to kind of add that model conditioning context and add metadata. So for those of us who may not be able to, who may not be those Revit users, maybe this is a PM or somebody who indeed wants to, or perhaps supers, people in the field, people who are interested in actually interacting and being able to append their own custom data sets or properties to 3D objects and models. Now you're able to do that, and instead of having to go and ask, make a phone call or ask the person back in the office to do some research for you, you can go and actually append data into these models, and it will be readable, and it'll be visible to you in Docs views. So this just allows autonomy for folks who maybe don't have that. They feel they don't have that currently, that kind of context. So very valuable. And again, I think it feels somewhat like the Assemble aspect of the ACC platform. So there has been dramatic improvement with these models. I'll say it again because we've already said it a few times. Again, it's just smoother, cleaner. Again, that concept of in Navis, the occlusion, so if it's not visible, it's not needed to be processed, that kind of thing. It helps us with these large data sets when we're having federated models all loaded together. Again, this web GPU optimized viewers allows them to work more efficiently. And so when we're in the web, we're just kind of navigating, scrolling, and doing our walkthroughs, measurements, etc. It's just going to allow for a smoother performance. All right, so that was some of our model side and the ABC Pro. Now let's take a look over at the build and project management side. So this is something that, enhancement-wise and, really cool information coming out of kind of enhanced information, just updates and so on, coming out of AU. The focus on AI has been, the focus on AI from AU was quite important, and the amount that we're going to be leveraging AI and the various tools, LLMs, things like that we all are potentially using in our daily work, all of that is really being infused into the ACC. And we will see this with future updates as well, but for today and for this latest release, we have the ability to accelerate our RFIs. So quick create RFIs, it allows the RFI individual that's creating it input spoken language, again, kind of that LLM concept where we can actually speak it into existence. This is happening with other platforms. Certainly, we may have seen the keynote. There's some Revit generative design, some AI concepts that are coming into play with spoken language, allowing us to create, right, and generate information, and it will populate this information for us. Helps us to just get over the line, get that information created. We of course, as always, want to go do our own due diligence and check everything we've created. However, this can expedite the process to create the RFI and then ultimately allow us to get it out the door more easily, accurately, and quickly. Closed RFIs and bridge. This is very important because closed RFIs always matter, right? Project history matters. So it allows us to have visibility across our projects for various aspects of project delivery. We could only, up to this point, we were only able to bridge open RFIs. So once it was closed, that information was locked inside the original the original generated project. So if something occurs elsewhere on a different project, no, we could not really easily share that information, kind of referring back to for historical context. So again, we can now bridge closed RFIs across projects, whether in the same ACC account across individual projects that are yours, and of course across other accounts. So, you know, with your subs and or consultants, etc. All right. Additionally, in the project management side, some mobile update. Something that's incredibly important for our correspondence. We all are glued to our emails, right? One of the things we want to impress upon folks is if you're not leveraging the correspondence module, by all means, take it into, you know, maybe give it a test out, do some piloting for it. Because it really doesn't require us a lot of extra work other than to CC your project at minimum out of your regular email provider. If you're in Outlook or Gmail, etc., just CC the project and everything lands in the correspondence module within your project in ACC. And now with this new addition, we have the ability to, we have additional mobile filters. As you can see, we can now filter by this list here. So type from, recipients, etc. So again, can't express it enough. If it's handy, if you wish to keep all of the project-centric data to include emails, we want to, you know, the whole point of the ACC is to reduce silos, right? Well, if we can collect all of our email as well into the project, and just keep harping on that, make that a mantra of project delivery from project managers across the board. Just try to get everything in there. Now we have the ability to more easily navigate and filter. All right, a couple more things here, asset tracking and handover. So one of the important things we were not able to do previously, restore deleted assets. So that's been a capability quite broadly throughout the platform to restore something that was deleted, of course, with our files and so on. Now we can restore deleted assets if something, you know, potentially was deleted. We all get fat fingers sometimes and don't mean to do something. We need to go back to the beginning. By all means, this is a very handy, small, maybe to some, but it's very handy. If you end up deleting something inappropriately, you want to go get it back, now we can do it on the asset side. Regarding handover, sheet collections now available. If you're not leveraging the collections, it's something that we would suggest at least exploring. Definitely valuable to reduce the time it requires to navigate a large set of sheets. So if you have 1,000 sheets and you want to be able to target just your discipline or your trade, etc., by all means, check out those sheet collections. And what's great is they're now available in the handover package to be able to to include the collections themselves in the handover package tree, and it will show that structure in handover. We got I think it's just the single update here for the cost management side. So we have new budget and revenue forecasting capabilities. So this release, it introduces an important enhancement to date range based forecasting, not only for cost but also budget and revenue forecasting. Now what this means is you can apply the same forecasting logic, calculations, date ranges, and adjustments you've already been using, but also to predict incoming revenue, and outgoing cost in a unified kind of systematic, streamlined workflow. It is subtle, but it's also a major step to give us the true kind of full picture of our finances in the project. Give me that, give that full comprehensive visual of our project finances. So ultimately, what has occurred, they've added a few new tools, the budget overview and edit mode. So there's a new setting, and this allows you to turn on additional columns, specifically in budget and revenue forecasting. There's a bottom flyout panel. If you would just kind of keep your eyes on the screen there, the green, those green boxes. The bottom flyout panel, you can now view and process forecast adjustments for both cost and budget in kind of the one single place. And there's also a new side panel here for forecast adjustment and kind of that flyout. This includes now includes a notes field, and this allows us to document rationale. Why was there, the rationale behind forecast changes, any adjustments that you've made, and it allows us to better, better communicate and be more transparent about what has occurred, so that down the road when we're looking back and we're maybe potentially auditing our project and the financials, why did something occur? All right. Now let's take a look at field collaboration and specifically forms. So now with our forms, we have the ability to, as this is some improvement with forms, we can now manage our data in the field a little bit more flexibly with attachments and reference download options. So with our references, we now have a little bit more, again, flexibility. We used to have to, on our mobile devices, it was kind of everything or nothing, right, for to be able to sync forms, right? Well, now you had to download everything, every form and attachment, every reference, everything that you've created, or else you may not have enough, may not have it all when you're working offline out in the field, potentially without connection. So this was very problematic because you didn't have the entire picture with those forms and with those attachments. You had to download them all, and if you didn't, you might have some missing picture. So what's now changed is that we can choose a subset of the forms, so we don't have to download every single thing. Only the ones they need access to from the cloud, instead of having to have everything on site. So when you're heading out to the site, you only need maybe the inspections. There's commissioning or there's punch lists, but you only need those inspections. You can just sync those to from the project's database. Okay. Again, maybe a little bit simple. However, it does boost performance. It reduces the amount of information that you're storing on your device. We do understand that this, with the amount of data that we work on in these projects, that can clog up our project, our machine. But with understanding that, this now can reduce that amount of data and ultimately boost performance on our devices. All right, now the drum roll for everything, for the information that we've all been waiting for, and I will hand it back over to Lisa.
Thanks, Alan. All right, yeah, we're just going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what you can expect with the new Autodesk Estimate solution. So as I mentioned, if you were at Autodesk University with us, or if you listened online, the main keynote kind of unveiled that there's a new solution coming. So this is not available yet, but that Autodesk Estimate is in the pipeline. It's currently in kind of an alpha state. So that means that at Autodesk, they're doing internal testing with it. But it's coming soon, and we just thought that it would be great to kind of let you know what you can expect with that solution. So Alan, if you want to go to the next slide, because it's an alpha, I don't really have any photos or videos, but I'm going to kind of go through some of the key capabilities and why it's going to matter for you. If you guys have questions on this, you can definitely post that in the question space or in the chat space. If you want to drop your email or your contact information, we can definitely kind of keep you in the loop as this solution progresses and as we learn more about its rollout. But Autodesk is officially introducing a brand new cloud native tool, and that is going to be called Autodesk Estimate. This solution is designed to bring speed, accuracy, connection to one of the most critical parts of pre-construction, which is obviously estimating. Again, this has not been released yet. This is just, I believe that it's going to be released for general audience, which is also called GA. So you might see that on their website, GA release, by the end of the year. But as everything at Autodesk, as I know from my time there, things can change. So that's my safe harbor statement around that release date. But, you know, you guys know that estimating has kind of lived in spreadsheets. It's been disconnected from takeoff and project execution. So Autodesk Estimate is going to change that by linking quantities directly to cost in a single cloud-based environment inside of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So this new tool is going to let teams flow seamlessly from 2D and 3D takeoff into detailed cost breakdowns, with all that quantity data being tied directly to materials, labor, any rate information. So now you're not going to have to export, you're not going to have to re-enter, you're not going to have to potentially risk having mismatched versions. Instead, you're going to build your estimates where your data already lives, which is going to be alongside your takeoff information, your models, and all of your project documentation. So what's going to set Autodesk Estimate apart is that connected 2D and 3D takeoff. So quantities are going to move directly into your estimate, staying linked for continuous accuracy throughout your project life cycle. We're going to have dynamic cost libraries. So, you know, linking your quantity data to cost, to labor, to material databases so that updates are going to flow automatically as any of your inputting changes. We have cloud collaboration, so you're going to be able to work with your team in real time. So your estimators, your PMs, your subs, all of those folks can view, review, and refine together. So you're not going to have a million different versions and a million different siloed environments. And we're going to have integration across ACC. So that means that your estimate is going to connect directly with Autodesk Takeoff, with Build, with Docs, and that's going to ensure continuity from design through delivery. And then modern transparent interface. So we're going to be able to track estimate versions, see changes, share assumptions clearly with all of your project stakeholders. So Autodesk Estimate is really about creating that single source of truth for estimating, one that is connected, traceable, and scalable. This evolution for you is going to mean that your teams can turn around bids faster, they can update their pricing with more confidence, and they can carry accurate data from pre-con into cost tracking and your financial management and project management. So again, we're still awaiting the final release timing, but Autodesk has confirmed that Estimate will launch as part of the Autodesk Construction Cloud suite. So as it rolls out, we can expect a strong foundation focused on, again, those core estimating workflows with more advanced features like assemblies, bid comparisons, custom cost libraries. All of that will kind of follow as the project starts to mature. So super excited to announce that. Again, if you're interested in kind of, you know, being kept in the loop as that product solidifies and gets released, definitely let us know, and we can do that for you. And that really wraps up all of our releases and announcements. Just kind of in closing, we do have some resources for you, so be sure to visit the IMAGINiT Resource Center for all things how-to videos, blogs, guides. And then if you already are connected with IMAGINiT and you have a sales executive that you work with, please feel free to reach out to them for additional training or implementation support. Always feel free to reach out to Alan and I. And then be sure to join our upcoming updates and webinars around ACC releases. And with that, we'll head into Q&A. I almost said QA, QC. Yeah, don't worry.
With that, thanks everyone for attending and have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.